I've gone and bought a new table saw fence. It's an upgrade for this type of machine, albeit the Shanwood variety. The fence I currently use could never span the full distance of the extension I built, and in a previous video you can see me having to clamp the fence down to make a simple top miter cut. The old fence was actually sold as an upgrade for bandsaws, and I was never quite happy with how it connected to the cast iron top. This new fence is supposedly an upgrade for this type of saw, although mine is a very old Axminster variety without soft start or braking. I'm aware that Draper and Chapat also sell similar machines, but the newer versions don't seem to have this lip at the front of the cast iron top. So in this video I'm going to install the fence and do a few other modifications to the saw to keep it running a little while longer. I start by dismantling the old fence and hoping I don't need to put it back to make any other cuts. After holding the front roll in a few positions, I decided the best thing to do is get my apprentice to work on this. Only joking, I'm a one-man band, a lone wolf. No one wants to be my apprentice anyway. It's quite a heavy piece of aluminium. I decided to take a few pieces of scrap 20 by 20 aluminium extrusion and test the positioning. I have 3 mounting holes to work from, but I started by installing 2 pieces and resting the front roll on top to check the fence was sitting in a good flat position. After a bit of chin scratching, I decided to cut the aluminium profile down using my trusty cross-cut sledge. I'm going to install the aluminium profile with some leftover T-nuts from my CNC machine build. The half attached to the cast iron gets screwed down from the top, while I need to punch and drill holes into the profile for the machine screws which will hold the front rail. I bolt the piece first to the table, and after adding the T-nuts to the opposite end of the extrusions, I slide the front rail into position. I then slacken the machine screws at the cast iron top and use the square to make sure everything is at 90 degrees while tightening everything. To set the fence parallel to the blade, there are 4 machine screws at the T of the fence which can be slackened and adjusted. I do this by eye, looking at the shadow created along the miter channel in the top, and then moving the fence towards the blade, looking at the spacing at the front and back of the blade. I prematurely added the measuring tape which was supplied with the fence before realising the fence itself wasn't square to the cast iron top, so I will have to come back and sort that out. That feels super sturdy. With the other fence I'm going to fit it on the back just so I still have the option of using the router table. So that's 15.5, 15.46. The old fence had a clever method using an eccentric spacer to pivot a bearing wheel to adjust the face of the fence so it is square to the cast iron top. Unfortunately, the new fence doesn't have such a mechanism, and when I checked whether its face was square to the top, I realised it wasn't. I'm just checking how square this is, and it definitely isn't square. This thing isn't square. I decided to take the new fence apart, drill a few extra holes in the joining piece, and then adding a length of aluminium C-beam to use as a fence. This was an extra piece I bought again while making my CNC machine. Okay, the fence is looking pretty good, but I want to add something to the face here just so that I can avoid these gaps, especially when I'm doing miters. And what I'm going to use is this quite thick piece of melamine MDF. Okay, I've just set the depth off up here. So the fence is a lot better, but the problem now I have is the ruler's not aligned with the face. Just clean this with a bit of turpentine and I'm re-sticking the tape back on. I then became a little optimistic, designing a fine adjustment mechanism to move the fence. This was a prototype which I partly 3D printed and partly milled on my CNC machine. The rack, which I could make from aluminium profile once my larger CNC machine is completed, bolts onto the underside of the front rail, and the pinion or gear is held at the correct position in a mount with a bearing. This is bolted onto the underside of the fence near the clamping handle. When I move the rotation knob back, the gear engages with the teeth of the rack and I can rotate it, moving it along. And when I don't want it to engage, I can push it forward. You can see the mechanism working here. I think the teeth need to be a lot finer or the rotation knob a lot larger to get the delicate movement you'd really need. So I'll just stick with knocking the fence with my knuckles for now. And the real problem with this design is I can't just lift the fence up. I have to slide it point where there's no track, and then even then I still can't lift it up. It also occurred to me that the channel in the C-beam, which I'm using for the table saw fence, could be really useful for dust extraction. I think I'll work on consolidating the router table and table saw fence into one thing, but I'll save that for another video. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks again for watching, and you'll see me in the next one.